I do apologise for that. I must have accidentally pressed my stop streaming hotkey, but we should be back now. Any second now. But we should be back as soon as possible. I hope. I may have actually... Oh dear. This is a little bit awkward actually. Wow. So, welcome to ESRS again. This is actually ESRS rather than SAL Academy. I do apologise about that. It's something messed up with the stream, and now it's saying it's SAL Academy, but it isn't SAL Academy. This is ESRS. And I can't change it either, which is very annoying. 8 minutes left in the qualifying session, though, as I figure out a way to change this. Edit. There we go. We can edit the stream title. ESRS Season 3, Round 3. Oh, for crying out loud. Bear with me. So at least we've got the right title now, albeit not the right thumbnail. I'll have to change that later, but welcome back everyone. I'll just tell everyone in chat that stream is back up. And yes, we'll get underway. 7 minutes now left of this qualifying session. As it's currently James Smith on pole position, is what you would have missed. Being followed closely by Joe Gillett, I believe that was, on the second position on this timing graphic. It is in a sense a 1-2, but a 9,000th of a second behind is Alex Maggio. So hot on their tail. He's setting a flying lap currently. Of course, I imagine as a mod developer himself, he probably knows all of the quirks that can be possible with the track as he's chucking it around here. Using almost full lock for a corner that doesn't usually require full lock. Excellent from Maggio. He's going to head through Sector 3 now. Sean Jones just ahead of Alex Maggio. Is he going to get a bit of toe maybe this lap or next lap? But just in time to cross the line, he does improve by 2/10. With 5 minutes to go, which means Joe's going to have to really set up this lap nicely if he wants to get back into that 1-2 position for his team. James Smith has also got to improve really to get a better bumper between him and Alex Maggio, but I don't think he's going to. From talking to the drivers, it appears that a 1/16 is pretty much the maximum you can get out of this car on this track. James really grabbing this car by its neck right now. 116.7 is what he's trying to beat from himself. He's going to cross the line. He's got a couple more laps in hand, though. He's not going to improve. But he's going to have another go. Second gear catching a bit of oversteer. You can tell he's on the edge. Third gear. Now back down to second. He's really feathering the throttle through there and stamps on it. Heading down this back straight. Using all of the track he can. Staying as tight to that racing line as possible. Braking as late as possible. Fifth gear. Really making sure that car doesn't get away from him. Always does get away from him. But he's able to just about hold it steady. It's possibly going to lose him time, but he's still absolutely going for it. This is a very impressive lap from James, albeit pretty messy. Staying. He's actually shifted down on a straight there. Not ideal. Again, the car's just trying to get away from him. He just can't hold it together, and it's half impressive, but half really quite concerning for the Englishman who lives in Luxembourg. Somehow his internet connection is better than mine as he crosses the line. He's got about 2 laps. Now, he isn't able to improve as we probably would have expected. Now, what can Maggio do to sort of reply to this? Not much, it seems, as he's lost the car, and depending on that damage, it could be his qualifying over. I wouldn't be surprised if he resets to pits now, as he does. Back on board with James. So let's try and find Joe, who's going to cross the line. Is he going to be able to improve? He's got a lot of traffic up ahead, and he isn't able to improve. He is, but he's not able to improve to beat Maggio, which is what he wants to do. This could be Asensa's second ever win in sim racing. If they win today's Peter Jones flips upside down over there. He's qualifying, taking a massive dent. Although he's just got enough time to do another lap if he's able to get out the pits. And, well, be careful, I suppose. Joe sliding through there beautifully. Just able to keep the car, well, keep the car going smooth. Absolutely ringing this as much as he can. Making sure the engine's always screaming for help. If the engine's screaming for help, you're probably in the right gear. Clean and tidy lap from Joe. He's going to cross the line and we're just going to be able to not see it, I think, but we are. No improvement from the Englishman. But he's got time for one more lap. Maggio's going to have time for one more lap as well. And I think James is going to well, this will be James's final lap. Maggio's going to go on a final bout for pole position. 1/10 in it. Is he going to be able to reclaim that 10th of a second? I don't think he is. He's had a bit of a lock up there. And oh, he spun it! Qualifying over for Alex Maggio. Now Joe Gillett has to have. Is he going to be able to gain those 2/10 that he needs? That 1/10 he needs to beat Alex Maggio. Catches the slide. And I have just realised that the engines here are so quiet that you cannot hear them. Let me turn that up for you. Third gear really cannot get any more speed out of this car through these corners, can Joe? He's around the final corner. This is literally make or break as he crosses the line. We're going to just be able to see if it is what we think it is. No and no. As Joe forces the use of the sensor button, and James is still going, trying to improve still. I don't quite think he's going to. Well, he doesn't need to, that's for sure. Although he has got in the entire field within 6/10 of himself, so it's not as close. It's not as clear cut as we think it might be. James is probably going to have to gain at least a 10th to kind of keep it. Although almost everyone's in the pits. It's only Sean Jones and, Sean Jones that can really do anything now. As James does improve, but not by much. Now Sean Jones around the final corner. Is he going to be able to improve any more? He needs 7/10. Pretty much. I don't know. No! James Smith is on pole position. Anyway, I would say we'd like to thank you very much for watching, but we wouldn't. We will see you in 10 minutes' time. I've got to go eat my dinner. We will see you in 10 minutes' time at the end for the actual race now. 25 minutes. It should be a 10-minute wait, and then we will be back. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the ESRS Zandvoort Grand Prix, the Dutch Grand Prix, E3.
Personnel leave the grid now.
And in case you can't tell, all non-essential personnel have been called to leave the grid now. And everyone will be making their way onto the formation lap momentarily. We're going to check up on James Smith for the formation lap, and the second the formation lap gets underway, we ourselves can put the fancy overlay on. I don't fancy being on the grid for the race. That wouldn't be ideal at all. So we're waiting the 1 second until I myself am allowed to actually race and show you all of the GID overlays and stuff. So James Smith is leading us away, followed by Alessandro Maggio, Joe Gillett, Mattia Melissa, Peter Jones, Sean Jones, Marco Carrigal, David Kabicki, João Fernando, and Harry Smith. It's been a pretty exciting qualifying session, and Alex Maggio has already spun on the formation lap and collected Peter Jones with him. No, that's David Kabicki, sorry, in the same colour car as Peter Jones. Not ideal for Maggio. But James Smith has so far gone completely smoothly, albeit with a couple of pad disconnects throughout the warm-up session, which could be the vein of his life heading into the second part of this season. Perhaps a championship ruined by disconnections so far. But you can see the driver's eye and the nice weaving and scrubbing of his tyres by James as he prepares for what's certainly going to be an electric race, if you'll pardon the pun. Burnout to... Oh dear! What has happened there? Marco Carrigal has flipped it on the formation lap. No idea what's happened there, but everyone's managed to reverse finally into their grid slot. And we are going to wait for the right lights. Restart. The red flag has been called.
Attention grid, will all non-essential personnel leave the grid now.
So, if you're just joining us, the red flag has just been called out after a flip. No formation lap. Apparently, everyone being told to stay where they are. Zhao has been told to start from the pits. Not the best publicity for my team there, but it's a little bit awkward as fine. Oh no, it's put me on the grid. Oh, that's not ideal. Right, that's not ideal. As the lights are about to go out. And it's lights out and away we go. And if you excuse me, I have got to quickly come into the pits. This wasn't ideal. Oh dear. This isn't actually working. I've got to just get out of the way. I do apologise for this. It's been a very weird start to this stream, but it's imperative that I get out of everyone's way. We'll just pull in there. Right, let's see. What's it been like? Peter Jones has spun, and we are underway. It's been a very hectic 30 seconds, and Alex Maggio is pressurising James Smith immediately. James Smith has led away quite nicely from Alex Maggio. From Joe Gillett, who's being pressurised by Mattia Melissa even more. This is the onboard view with Marco Carrigal as we can watch these two battling ahead. I'll take the tab away from you for a second. As Mattia's going for it, really, on Joe. Quite an interesting duck and dive move there from Mattia. Unable to make anything of it yet through the very fast, slightly banked turns here at Zandvoort. Of course, the main reason people like this track is those massive bank turns. Of course, that previous bank turn being changed for the 2020 season. This being a slightly older version of Zandvoort, as Mattia Melissa unable to quite get past there. Everyone else is going through fairly nicely. Alessandro Maggio going for a move on James Smith. A bit of action that we might need. It's very hard to pass around this circuit, around the outside. Maggio, this is a very brave move. Has he got through? I think so. James Smith completely triumphed. Oh, Alessandro Maggio triumphed there. Smith trying to go around the outside, unable to make about it. I'd think about it. I was reading what was on the back of his car. James Smith is going to try and make a move, though. He needs to control this race. It's very important that he's in control for this entire race. He builds himself a margin in the case of a pad disconnect or something. And Maggio's locking up all over the place. This could be quite a nice little setup from a move for James Smith. And Maggio's weaving quite excessively. That's not allowed. And James has been forced to the outside. Maggio going very defensive. And James has almost held it around the outside. And he's been squeezed off. And has to yield for now. As Maggio's made a mistake and is off the track. And into the wall. Not unusual for him to make a mistake and go off the track. This is the other Italia car. No, this is the same Italia car, I should say. Maggio down into P4. Marco Carrigo trying to go. What a move from Marco. Up into P4. And Maggio's gone deep again. I don't know what's going on with Maggio. As Marco stops to let Maggio through again. I didn't particularly say anything wrong with it to mean that he had to do that. Please don't I put my car in neutral. Bear with me. Just got to find out whether I put my car in neutral or not. There we go. So if I never before as a commentator I had to check if he's put his race car in neutral. But this is Joe Gillett trying to make a move on Mattia Melissa, trying to get back into second place, and it is in a sense a 1-2, and in fact Joe might want to make it a sense of 1-2 in the other way. Apologies, Mattia Melissa has actually got past Joe Gillett and is looking to get past James Smith now. I was saying how he's been a midfield driver and he needs in this final season of the series, needs to sort of improve and get himself up into that first, or into those higher positions. James trying his best to sort of control this race. He's got a 4/10 gap to Mattia Melissa. And Joe Gillett unable to make that move and slight oversteer from Mattia once more. "20 minutes to go in this race. We've already had 1/5. As James has sent everyone to the inside, only to sweep back to the racing line. It's 3 wide almost. Joe trying to find room for him, and Mattia's soared into the lead, but then made a mistake, and Joe's got through as well. Not quite. Mattia manages to get back. Ducking and diving everywhere is Mattia, trying to find space to get past and make this move stick. It's so difficult to make moves stick in this series as Marco goes for a move down the inside of Maggio. Unable to make it stick, I think. Until now, Marco has got the move. Such a bunched up pack, 6/10 in between the field in qualifying. So you can see everyone filtering through. Lovely camera shot there. As you can see, soaring down the straight, it's James Smith still in the lead. And these three are going to have a massive battle into turn one. It feels Joe. James has spun. James is round. Hit by his teammate. They're in a voice call and James has gone around. There's more yellow flags ahead and that's Joe. Nightmare for a sensor in the space of 2 corners. It might just not be James's year. Maybe 2 wins in 2 races that a sensor has taken part in today. Maybe that was just too much to ask for. And now it seems almost certain that James has thrown away this win. That being said, look at how close that pack actually is. He hasn't lost too much time, and you wouldn't run it past James to do something with a strategy here and get ahead of this sort of leading pack in the next few minutes. You can see there, just in the background, him and Sean coming down the straight just as everyone else is entering turn one around the outside. Marco Kriegel. This battling is going to play into James and Sean's hands. Although Mattia will feel like this is his race to win now. I believe he's never won a race before in the ESRS, and this could be his time to get a win. Of course, James won first time out, and then second round he lost so many points from a last lap disconnect 10 metres before the line, I believe it was. Hadn't lapped anyone, so was only able to, or had only lapped a couple of people, so was only able to bring home a couple of points from that, from what seemed to be a certain podium. Still though, Marco trying to go for a move. This is the current world champion trying to go for a move on Alessandro Maggio. No one really revving out this car as much as you perhaps could, at least in this race distance. James has got a 3.1 second loss to the lead. And look at the slipstream effect as Alex Maggio really aggressively pulls to one side there. And Marco's able to just slip through, I think. Maggio still defending, still trying to make this car as wide as possible, and these two are battling, which is not what they want to do. Maybe beneficial for Sean, but James does not want to battle. He wants to just put in the laps and get ahead of this pack as soon as possible, or at least catch up to them so they can make it a 5-way battle. These two battling is not really going to help that. It's 3.1 seconds now though. 2.8, and it looks like James might actually be able to get back in to this front running battle with Sean in a couple of laps maybe. Keep an eye on that delta at the bottom of your screen as Marco's fallen back from Maggio a little bit. As James and Sean are having a bit of a tussle here as well. As Marco has lost it. Marco spun and he's able to just not collect anyone, maybe apart from Joe. Comes out just ahead of Joe, but Joe might actually fancy his chances here. He's got the better speed and he's going to make the move before the line. Before the corner, sorry. As he does, let's move on further forward. James has managed to get himself, with Sean, back up into third and fourth. Alex Maggio trying to eat away at that gap to Mattia Melissa, who so far has controlled this race, or at least the 5 or so minutes that he's been in the lead. Would be a spectacular drive from Mattia Melissa if he is able to bring home this win. Sean and James are still battling, which again is not what you want to do. Sean, of course, being on the wheel for the first couple of times. Although, actually, no, I think he's decided to go back to the pad for ESRS. His pad is beneficial most of the time. James dummies Sean into the pits, or at least tries to. Clever mind games, really, but not quite fooling the Prime GP driver. This being the final season of anything that Prime GP take part in, this team would be disbanding at the end of this season. Sean dropping back from the pack now a little bit as James is falling back from the pack himself just little by little. You can still see him there, and Maggio has now suddenly found himself all over the back of Melissa. Melissa's going to have to really watch his mirrors, and this is playing into the 3 and 4 of James and Sean. This is playing into their hands perfectly. This is the bonnet cam, or the reverse bonnet cam. It's Maggio goes for a very adventurous move there. I'm not sure that was exactly what Mattia had in mind. As he ducks into the pits. No, he spins in the pits. He's possibly thrown away a certain win with a spin in the pit lane. It's not what he wants. So you can see my pit crew actually there. Let me just take that off. Mattia. Not ideal. That surely gained James, Sean and Maggio a position. Spinning in the pit lane is the last thing you want to do. He just went in too hot, locked up the rears, and that sends you round so easily. You've got to be smooth as you enter the pit lane. Sean trying his best to get up to these leading to Harry Smith for the tide from the race. We haven't really heard from him much anyway. It's now Sean all over the back of James Smith. Actually had to duck out of that a little bit. Should be further forward than he is. Rounding the final corner, and this might actually be James's chance to make a move for the lead as Maggio heads into the pits. And Sean heads into the pits. It's make or break now for James. Maggio heads into... Oh no! They've got the same pit box! Sean and Maggio have the same pit box! That could be the saving grace for Mattia Melissa, who does come out behind James Smith, Alessandro Maggio, by quite a significant amount. It is hammer time now for James Smith. He's got to make this work. He's got to absolutely push as hard as he can on this in-lap, I assume it would be. Or at least in the phase, halfway through the race now, over halfway through the race. This stage now where he's got a 13.8 second gap back to Alessandro Maggio. Now he's got to push. He's got to make sure that's about 15 seconds to get ahead of Maggio. It was about a second, the gap anyway. So James just got to hope RNG is on his side in this one. He's got to hope the pit lane does him proud, and he's got to hope that he's able to just come out ahead of Maggio. He is going to pit this lap, it looks like. Almost ruins it himself. A bit of speeding in the pit lane, but I doubt the admins are nasty enough to make anything of that. And I think Maggio is going to come out ahead here. You can see him there rounding the final corner. Is James going to be able to make anything of this? Oh, it's going to be very close. Really close, and James just is ahead. By the smallest of margins, James is just ahead. If he'd have been off the limiter 1/10 of a second later, or if he'd have just made his, or come out of his pit box a little bit slower, James would have been behind Maggio. And what a battle this is. Maggio around the outside. James defending for all it's worth. Mattia Melita is nowhere in this one. All the way down to third after such a agonising pit lane spin. Maggio goes in very deep. A lot of the time Maggio goes in deep in these races. A bit too reluctant on the brakes, Maggio. He's too committed into the corners. But it is James Smith, Alex Maggio, Mattia Melissa, followed by Sean Jones, Marco Carrigal, João Fernando, Peter Jones, David Kubicki, who spins again, Harry Smith and Joe Gillett in first position, actually, Joe. 11-second gap, although Joe hasn't pitted yet, so he won't stay in first position. Unless he can get that gap out 4 seconds, which he might do with these two battling. In which case, Joe would have a very, very pretty win on his hands. Though I imagine with the championship concerns, the centre might consider team orders here. But these two are so equally matched that they're not sure who's going to come out on top. Andrew May and Jake Denton saying this is more exciting than the Hungarian GP. Jake himself actually saying, come on, James. I think everyone is kind of rooting for James. I've definitely got no bias myself. 100%. But it looks like Maggio's just sort of held off a little bit as now Sean is going for the podium. You can see Mattia as Marco goes off. You can see Mattia just squirming and trying to fight his way past this Prime GP car. I'm not sure he's going to be able to find the space. Heading into turn 1. Sean gets the position. Mattia unable to quite get that space that he needs. As we look at the driver's eye. Try and approximate where Sean would be looking. As you can see, Mattia just can't quite stay ahead. Mattia, a lovely little lunge there. Sean, as you can see, didn't really see it coming. Looking through the apex, and then he's got to search for Mattia. Just know where he is ahead of him and just try and figure out how to get past. Harry Smith has left the game. He'd already retired earlier on though, so it's not too relevant. Let's take a look back at James Smith and Alessandro Maggio, who are fighting for the lead as Joe Gillett is really extending the life of these tyres. He's got 5 minutes to go, so a couple of laps to make a pit stop. And I don't quite think it's going to be his time here. Not quite sure what that does. It's now Maggio. Let's have a look at his driver's eye, properly with the free look. As Sean Jones is still behind Mattia Melissa, can't quite get that move. And look at how much, just look at the wheel, Maggio. Just trying to put in as little lock as he can, but he ends up putting in quite a lot of lock for a lot of these corners. And he does lose the car slightly there. This really gives you a sense of the vibrations felt through this car. Joe is in the pits, and as you can see, not even close. A good 4 seconds. I estimate will come out in about 6th position. And now this is James's race to lose. Three minutes and 30 seconds to hold off Alessandro Maggio. If he's able to hold him off, then let me just double check the championship standings for you. Because this could be very close. As we wait for my phone to connect to Discord. As Alex still trying to get that lead. He wants this race win, but I don't think he's going to quite get it, if I'm being honest. I think it's going to be very close. As we wait for this very slow internet to load. Again, someone tell BT to sort their stuff out. James hugging that inside line as close as he can. Losing him time in the long run. But it's actually Eddie Batar, who's not even here today, on the top of the championship, followed by Mattia Melissa in 2nd place. A little bit of a tap there between these two. But crucially, this would mean that James Smith goes into the lead of the championship. He's on 29 points compared to 30 for Mattia Melissa and 33 for Eddie Batars. But this is so close. Look at this racing. Joe Gillett actually comes out in 3rd position. Insane mid-stint for him. That clean air really doing him well. I didn't notice he was in 3rd position as James and Maggio still fighting this out. Neither of them want to yield. So close. It's agonisingly close. This is why we love ESRS. And look, James is getting such a better launch off of that final corner. That's really protecting him in this final, down this back straight. 2 laps to go now. 1 minute 20 on the clock. That's enough time to do 2 laps. Unless they both slow down. I think Maggio will want that extra lap. I don't think James wants the extra lap. That's for sure. There's no working together now. There's no worrying about pit stop gaps and making sure that the gap's down. No, Maggio spun! And Maggio's lost it! And that's going to allow Joe to come through in 2nd place, possibly! Maggio swerves to defend him, and Maggio almost takes him out! It's a really dirty move from Maggio, but Joe's managed to get ahead. It's a sense of 1-2 out of nowhere. Maggio's still trying to get past Joe, and he's gone onto the grass again, and he's almost lost it. Mattia Melissa might be able to get himself up into 3rd position here. As James is about to round Sector 3, and he might be able to get... Well, he's got the time now. 6 seconds to slow down. And maybe make sure this race is 1 lap shorter. He can afford it. And João Fernando has left the game. Possibly a disconnect there. James backing off, trying to make sure that he has to do 1 more lap. As Joe and Maggio will cross the line, but they have to do 1 more lap as well because they're on the lead lap. No, they finished! What a weird situation. So James is going to gain a lap on them. James has got to do a lap of possession almost. If James disconnects now... He thinks it's over. It's not over. James thinks it's over. He thinks he's won, but he hasn't won yet. I mean, he has, but not quite. Apparently James has got a possible penalty coming his way, but I doubt it with almost... He's got to finish this lap. It's not over yet. Penalty. I'm not sure what for. I'll have to see. James, possible penalty or disqualification for a mismatch. So it's going to be bittersweet, but he is going to cross the line in first. So he is provisionally the championship leader. Unsafe release into Sean, but don't actually... Anyway, we will thank you all very much for watching, and we will see you all later. Keep up to date with the social media as well. We'll tell you about any penalties that James